Last night, I watched the Donald Trump movie.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
You know
I had enough. I had fucking go.
You know
go,
the
go,
one with
go.
Sebastian Stan?
I haven't seen it.
It was really good.
Okay.
Really good.
Yeah.
Worth watching. It was so interesting because the way it was done was like...
When was this made? Sorry.
Like this year.
Okay, so it follows the whole presidential thing. It's not
No, it takes place in like the 70s and the 80s.
It's him on the come up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's interesting because like Sebastian Stan, first of all, acts it so well. Incredible.
Okay.
And
he's Trump.
Yeah.
He doesn't look like a Trump.
I
to me.
didn't
That's
think
crazy.
that. But as the film goes on, I'm like, oh, I get it.
Okay. I'm just pulling up
It
Trump.
makes sense. Yeah. But it was an amazing film. And what was really cool about it was that like at the beginning, because basically the film follows him, the kind of first half of the film is him with this mentor that he finds. I don't want to spoil it for anyone. So spoiler alert, I guess. I'm going to try not to spoil it, but in case I say something, spoiler alert. But he has this mentor that he kind of teaches him the rules. And it's interesting because you see him at the beginning and he's much more like, he's still like a hustler. He still wants to like, he's ambitious, but he's much softer and he's much like more moralistic and he's much more like, you can't do that. That's not okay, you know? And this other guy who's like his mentor is like a fucking piece of shit. And he's like, all right, fuck all that. You gotta do this, you gotta do this, you gotta do this. Fuck anyone over, we know whatever it is. And then Trump kind of becomes more and more like that.
Okay.
And then you see his look changing like gradually throughout the film. And so it's really interesting because like by the end of the film, he has all the orange and the hair.
What is that about, man?
And his voice is a little bit different. And it was just so subtle in terms of the acting, how like Sebastian Stan was when he starts the film compared to how he is by the end of the film. And the story was really compelling. Because I think it was really, because the interesting thing is my friend saw it and he was like, you know, it was a propaganda film. It was, you know, whatever. I was like, I actually thought, not knowing anything about any of the stuff that was in the film or that happened, I actually thought it felt very real and it all felt quite plausible. It's based on true events, so they say, you know, there were people from the films who said these stuff that he said and these situations happened, but obviously there's always a pinch of salt in that we don't know. Yeah. Incredible film, so well acted, and so interesting to see the actual progression of how he was at this period to this period to this period.
Because he's an enigma, right?
Yeah.
He is quite like people, like, I don't really know much about him.
Well, I know that what's interesting is it touches on stuff. You know, dude, I had the craziest thing the other day. So obviously I'm a tour guide, right? I did a tour. I had this group from America and one of the guys, we got talking and it was right before the election. And he was the kind of guy where I was like, this guy's definitely going to be a Trump guy, 100%, because he was super, I think he was from Florida or somewhere. And he was like, he seemed kind of like ambitious and kind of Republican in his energy. And then he was just like, yeah, we got to get this fucking guy out. And I was like, oh, you don't like Trump? Because I was surprised, right? And he was like, no, he's a fucking scam artist. He's this, he just, and he was saying all the things. He was like, he's stolen from so many people. Like, there's so much evidence of him stealing and not paying people back for work and da da da. And he was like, he stole from me. He's like, I did contracts for him. I had a construction thing, and he's like, we had to sue him. We never got paid. He never paid us. He's a fucking thief. He's a thief. And I was like, this guy, like, I'm a tour guide. This guy had no reason to fucking lie to me about it. You know, it was just, and you could tell by the way he was talking, he was like, he meant it. You know? And I think there are a lot of stories like that from people, who are from New York. Apparently, like, you know, there's a lot of stories of like, yeah, he just doesn't, you know.
Anyone who gets anywhere in those positions, you know, not every time, but I would probably say 8 out of 10 times, you probably fucked a couple of people over. Yeah. It is just an unfortunate reality of that world. Not just like being successful, but like that uber success when you get to that kind of number.
And they touch on that like a couple of times in the film of like him, the whole thing of him not having money and that whole stuff, and like the bankruptcy and the loans and things. They touch on that.
He was born into money though, right? His family were rich.
I mean, the impression I get from the film is he was born into money in the sense that like his dad was like a property guy, I think. Yeah. His dad was doing decently in some capacity. Yeah. But he's like sleeping in like Donald's sleeping in like a shitty apartment. They're not living in like a mansion or anything. It doesn't. So they're not like rich.
As in Donald.
In the film, it doesn't look
Donald
like
has his own shitty apartment.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not okay. I'm thinking it's like him, his mum, and his like fucking 2 brothers or something in a shit apartment.
No. I think isn't that the whole quote? It's like, I started off with a small loan of $1 million or something.
Yeah. I've seen that. Yeah.
So
which makes me sick.
Yeah. The irony is that in that kind of business, I think comparatively, if you're talking about like real estate development, that is actually quite a small loan.
Of course, yeah.
But in terms of like personal money, that's obviously ridiculous. So yeah, but dude, it was such a good film. I thought it was really
interesting.
Yeah, interesting just feels like a boring word. It just felt
ouch.
It felt quite
right? Fucking hell. Sorry, my vocabulary is so vanilla.
No, I just meant like.
Go on, throw out one of these big words that I don't fucking know what they mean. Go on.
Captivating.
Oh, I know what that means.